Issei was betrayed in Get Carnage.Part5. Issei is currently asleep. He's having a dream of ripping everyone to shreds. Civilians, innocent people, babies, children, all of that. He's having a dream he is in his Carnage state. His Carnage suit's on him. And he's just walking down the halls of Kohai, slashing, tearing at everyone in his way. There are 5 people trying to run from him, and they're running down the hallways. They're screaming, "Get away from us, you monster! We knew you were a damn monster ever since you entered the school. We knew it because every time we bullied you, every time we beat you, you just laugh maniacally, and you'd start wailing on us and not stopping afterwards. You're just a monster." They were screaming this as they were running, and Issei just stretched out his hands with the symbiote, stretched out his hands, and pierced through all of them with tentacles that were coming out of his back, pierced through all of them. He made them all come forward to him, and he started biting off each of their heads individually. You could hear the squashing and the chewing that he was emitting from his mouth, just eating. And all of a sudden, Konako is in the corner of the room, just in cradle position, looking at Issei in horror, screaming on the top of her lungs, and Issei's just running up to her, lunging at her, just jumps in front of her, is all the way up towards Konako's face, and then the person wakes up, and it's not Issei, it's Konako. Konako wakes up and is in tons of sweat, just cold sweat dripping down from her, and she notices something. She literally wet her bed from fear, and she's just screamed, and Rias, Akano, and, well, Asya all run in, and they're looking at Konako and ask, "What's wrong?" And they see that she pissed herself, and they look at her with this. Rias looks at her with disgust. Everyone else looks at her with worry, just wondering, what happened? Did you have a nightmare? What was it about? And Rias is kind of curious about this too, so she pulls up the sympathy act and asks the same question. And Konako says, "It's nothing. You don't have to worry." And her face is completely pale. Her eyes have dark circles under her, even though she went to sleep. She was constantly, for weeks, having this nightmare ever since Kiba's death. Konako just got up, got dressed, and decided to just go to school with everyone else. They leave their house that they relocated to in the forest, their mansion, and they just used the magic circle and teleported to the ORC room, and they just walked in and changed. They got dressed. They walked out of the ORC. Konako walked out first, and she started heading to Kohai, because they were just in the old school building. As soon as she walked into the building, she saw Issei in the front of the building, staring at her, walking up to her, and she's just frozen in fear. She can't move. This man is imposing a threatening aura that just says, "Don't defy me, or else." And Konako does not want to do that, or else, because she does not want to end up like how Kiba did. She's already pieced together that it's most likely Issei who did this. And Issei whispers in her ear, gets up close and puts her head towards her ear and whispers, "So, did you and your cute little barrage like my gift?" And he starts laughing maniacally in her ear, and this haunts Konako. She's just, her eyes are shattered with despair. Her eyes that once had color just faded. Her face was even more paler than it was before, and her eyes are pitch black in despair and agony and pain. And Issei pulled back and looked into her eyes and said, "Those are quite beautiful eyes, my little kitty cats. I think I'll see you soon." Maybe you might be next, who knows, or I might just go after Akano, or everyone you care about, and then leave you there to watch. And Konako is just really scared. She starts running away, runs past Issei, and Issei is just maniacally laughing. And Konako's running to her classroom. She runs all the way up the stairs, just slams open the classroom door, and everyone in the classroom is just really shocked because Konako usually enters quietly. And no, she just runs to her seat. She just sits there, and she just asks the teacher, "Can I move my seat, please?" And the teacher says, "No, they're assigned seats for a reason, Konako. If I let you move your seat, everyone will want to move their seat." And Konako was stuck sitting behind Issei, and Issei just calmly strolled up the stairs and started whistling a tune, a violent tune that ringed in Konako's ear because of her heightened senses as being a devil and a Nico. And she could hear this devilish tune, this terrifying tune, while he was just whistling down the hallways. The steps getting closer and closer to the classroom, and all of a sudden they stopped and vanished. And Konako just breathed a sigh of relief because Issei's probably just ditching or something. And all of a sudden, with her window, she looks to the side and sees a tap at the window right beside her desk. And she looks beside her and she screams when she sees Issei right at the window, opening the window open right beside Konako and just hopping into the classroom. And everyone starts screaming because they weren't expecting this. And the teacher just says, Issei, and he starts shivering in terror. So does everyone else. And Issei just says, "What up, Teach? I came in, but I decided to come in with some style, unlike you little sheep." And he looks at them with a predatory glance that makes them shiver. And they don't know why, but every instinct is saying to get away from them. It's as if a wild predator is looking at them. It's as if an entire coyote is looking at a pack of sheep. And they're just terrified. They're sweating. There's sweat bullets all over them. And Konako is even the worst. She's sweating so hard that you can literally see the outline of her bra because she sweated through her clothes. And literally, Issei just looks up towards where Konako is. Looks down towards Konako and just says, "You might want to put a jacket on. Why don't I get my jacket on you?" And he takes off his jacket and puts it around Konako. And Konako feels even worse. There's something in this jacket. She feels a little pain going through her blood. And Issei just smiles, and he walks up towards his seat, and he sits down. And Konako notices something in the coat. She notices this purple symbiote thing. This purple liquid that just went into her skin. But she blinks and it's gone. She didn't feel anything, so she didn't think that that was real. So she just starts looking at Issei, and she starts trying to figure out why he's like this. Why did he kill Kiba? Why would he do all of this stuff? And Issei is just smiling and whistling a tune the entire class. And the teacher didn't even dare to speak. Didn't dare to teach class. He was too scared because Issei might stab him or something, or do as God what knows else. And he always gets away with it somehow. A few weeks back, when they even installed security cameras and they're about to press to the police, the principal decided to go against it. And let's do a scene break. When Issei walked into class and the teacher was looking at him and saying you have to wear dress code when he was just wearing completely black suit with a red tie that looked like he was about to go to a funeral. And he looked at the teacher and he said, "Do I really have to wear the Kohai actual dress code?" And the teacher says, "Yes, and also, why do you look like you're going to a funeral?" And he looks at the teacher and smiles and said, "Because I'm going to your funeral." And he chokes out the teacher, and it's all on camera. And the teacher says, "There's a camera." And he's like coughing, and he's whispering out, "There's a camera. Don't do this." And he just doesn't care. He slams him against the chalkboard, just slams him against the wall, walks outside, walks out to the actual, walks out towards the window, jumps out the window with the teacher, lands perfectly, and starts slamming the teacher against the ground, and starts slamming him against the windows all over the school, and leaves the teacher unconscious. And then he walks up towards the principal's office. And the principal, who was just about to call the police from seeing this, just notices Issei's outside of his room, his office room, and Issei kicks down the door. He turns into his Carnage form, runs up to the teacher, and starts roaring, animalistically, insanely, and starts laughing, saying, "You look like you shit yourself, principal. I'm gonna give you this one proposition, and that's one you can't refuse. If you decide to report anything I do to the authorities, I will eat your family in front of you, strip their skin, and even leave some for you as a present, and force you to eat it before I rip your spine out, since you're a spineless coward." And the principal just is in pure terror, puts down the phone where he's about to call the police, and says, "I'll do whatever you want, Mr. Hyodo." And Issei said, "Just call me Issei, or better yet, call me Carnage." And he just puts his tongue out of his mouth and licks the principal's face before leaving. And the principal is just in pure terror. End of flashback. This is how Issei gets away with stuff now. Issei just walks all the way to the cafeteria after the bell rings, and the ladies always give him the most, because the females at the cafeteria, they don't pick on him anymore. They don't do anything bad to him, because they've figured out how bad that will end for you. Because the people that talk bad to him or annoy him too much always end up disappearing. They're piecing it together. It's this man. And they're very terrified. They give him steaks. They give him everything that they have. They give him the best food. And if people complained, they just point towards him and say, "Put your complaints to this guy." And everyone would just shut down. They just wouldn't even do anything afterwards, because they understand the pure terror of this man, known as Issei. Issei started eating, and Konako started just observing him. Still scared, but wanted to observe him in case he did anything more that he should report to Rias. And Rias has already brought this up with Sir Zex, but Sir Zex doesn't really believe Rias. Konako is observing more, trying to get actual pictures of him going into his Carnage state. And can't really get any. And the day just ends, and Konako is just watching Issei, observing him. And Issei wasn't really doing anything to Konako, which kind of shocked her. And Issei just left the premises and went home to go to sleep. And Konako just went towards Rias and gave her a report at the club mansion, where they all slept. And all of a sudden, once she went up to Rias, she felt something in her chest. Anger boil up. She felt hatred, and she felt pain. Such pain. Her bones were starting to snap and reform. She started screaming when she was in Rias's main office in the mansion. And Rias wasn't there, but Akano was. Akano went up to her and said, "Are you alright? Is anything wrong?" And she was patting Konako. Konako started screaming, and this purple just creature was enveloping her. And this purple creature said, "I am Wrath," and started screaming and grabbed Akano before she could run away when she saw that terrifying creature. Grabbed Akano, made Akano bring out her wings and rip them off, and said, "You will feel my wrath." And Akano was looking in pure terror at Konako, and Konako was just lifting up Akino off the ground. Her stature became huge. She was like 5 foot now, and was towering over Akino, who was being lifted up with one hand, mind you, and these tentacles were popping out of Konako, and they had drills attached to the end of them, and all you could hear from outside of Rias's office was screaming, and these tendrils with the drills at the end of them were digging deeper into Akino's flesh for what seemed like hours, and started making a bloody mess into her insides. You could hear the squishing and squashing of her internal organs, the drilling, the piercing of her organs. You could hear her screams in pain and agony begging for it to stop. You could hear her blood-curdled gurgling when the blood started dripping through her lungs, started coming up, and she couldn't spit any of it out because Konako would just grasp her mouth and make her choke on her own blood. And then, after a few hours, the symbiote that was inside of Konako started laughing maniacally, and sharp teeth started popping out of Konako's mouth, and she just digged into Akino's shoulder and started numbing down on Akino, ripping off her shoulder with the razor-sharp teeth, and started doing this repeatedly to every part of her body until there was nothing left except for bones. And then the symbiote just absorbed the bones into the symbiote, just breaking it down. And there was nothing left. There wasn't a single ounce of blood after the symbiote was done. And then Konako appeared out of the symbiote. The symbiote retreated into Konako, and Konako just appeared on the ground, unconscious. And Ria saw this and thought that Konako was exhausted and was trying to talk to her about something. So Ria just picked Konako up and dragged her into a room, laid her on the bed. And that is the end of the What If Issei Was Betrayed and Got Carnage Part 5. I hope you guys enjoy this development, and I hope you guys stay tuned for the next part, which may come up very soon.